Hi, it's Maria, and I'm doing number 27 of Forgiveness to Love, and this is my life exposed here. And so I wanted to give you, this is page 10, and the subtitle is my forgiveness list, where we talk about sabotage, and we talk about unlockings, and we talk about investments, and doctors and medical testing. And so remember from 26, I told you, I gave you a quote, which I thought was a beautiful quote and so true for especially what we are all going through right now here on planet Earth. And that quote is, the only thing necessary for triumph, for the triumph of evil, is for good men to do nothing. So think about that. Yes, darkness expands when we don't shine our light. How about that? And so anyway, I just wanted to quickly add to number 26, because we were learning about Social Security Administration. And some of us have actually had our survivor benefits deprived. We've been deprived of those survivor benefits. And so even though it really is in the hands of the county clerk's office or the Department of Public Health, because if they can't find that death certificate, then basically we are precluded from receiving those benefits, because the Social Security Administration says, don't call us until you have that death certificate. Well, I called governors, I called senators and congressmen and mayors, and I hired 2 private investigators, and I tried to find attorneys that wouldn't take it. And so I thought, well, how can I get it? And the reason why I was so desperate for it was because I needed that for my well, not my survival, but for my lifestyle, right? We need to pay our bills. And so, and around 2017, which is when they also told me that that they didn't have proof that he died, and so therefore I needed to get a copy of that death certificate. Well, at the same time, which was really weird, I was contacted by a brokerage firm, and they told me that there was an investment account there that the ex and I had funded for years, and that since he was now deceased, they wanted to close the account and send me the money in the account by check. And I was so excited. I thought, oh, thank you, God. And so and all I had to do was send them a copy of the divorce decree and the sentence in the judgment that the judge had written that specifically stated that I was entitled to this account. Well, I knew I was entitled to this account. And in terms of the divorce decree, the judge never gave us the divorce decree. And it was interesting because his attorneys, the spouse's attorneys, didn't want an actual single sheet of paper like most divorce decrees. He didn't want the judge to do that. So we never got it. And so even though it was interesting, because even though all I have to do is just give them the divorce decree in the one sentence, I couldn't do it, because the supplemental judgment was like a document of like 100 pages or 200 pages. And that was part of the divorce file. And the divorce files, I don't know if it was 40, 50, 60, 70, maybe 100 boxes full of all the memos and memorandums and pleadings and motions and orders and things like that. All of those were sealed. So I had no access to them. So it's interesting. And I thought, sometimes we feel like we are so manipulated by the dark, who kind of puts things in our way to close the doors, right? And so, so there were the Social Security survivor benefits, which I couldn't get a without a death certificate, and now I couldn't get this huge investment account because I couldn't come up with a divorce decree and the supplemental judgment that listed that I was entitled to this asset. And so, I just thought, this is kind of ridiculous, but so many of us kind of go through a lot of these things. And of course, there are things like this going on all over the planet for everyone to some degree. For some of us, though, we do feel as if we're maybe more targeted, shall I say, or we have so many adversaries that and not even known to us, because I just wanted to like everybody, but or love, but yeah, sometimes others aren't in a receptive mood, shall we say that. And then when we talk about like the sabotage, so there's the sabotaging of our food, and that really can be a life or death situation. So that is something that we need to put a stop to in whatever way we can do that. We need to be aware and we need to be alert. And so we have to protect our physical health, our mental health, our emotional health, and even our spiritual health. And so, many of us have been dealing with psychopaths for many years, right? And so psychopaths don't play games. And they and the minions or the flying monkeys or whoever it is that they hire to carry out a lot of their dysfunctional and really malicious deeds just follow orders, right? I mean, they just do their job. It's just a job to them. And so when they do the dark magic and all that stuff and the spells and stuff that I've heard that she pays for, I think all we can do is just understand that these are very disturbed people and to stay as far away as we can. Anyway, I wanted to talk about doctors and medical testing, and because doctors take an oath, a Hippocratic oath, which is that they vow never to do harm, right? And so I know that when some of us when our bodies have been so assaulted by the toxic chemicals placed in our food and water, I know I can feel it in my internal organs. I feel that they start to burn up almost, and then I feel flushed. In fact, I'm feeling very flushed right now. Oh, I think I'm, excuse me. Anyway, we feel like we're burning up. And, I'm beyond the age of a hot flash right now. So it's not a hot flash. But, or when we have like an injury, like I have the traumatic brain injury. And so that I was told that my sibling actually plotted that. And so we don't even think, we might think, oh, they're gossiping about us, or they're spreading rumors, or they're defaming us, or whatever. But we don't really think that actually they devise schemes to get rid of us, right? And so, when we have experienced enough of this toxicity, then we go to physicians, right? And we say, you know what, we're not feeling very well, and we have this symptom and that symptom. And so we want to have some tests in order to determine what exactly is going on with our physical bodies, right? And so the doctors that I went to, and it seemed like it was wherever I went. So it wasn't just one state or one hospital, but they ignored my complaints. And they wrote what they wanted in the charts, and they kind of minimized the issues I had, and they kind of made up their own. And so generally, everything I said to them, they pretty much just blew off. And so, they even ignored the previous diagnoses from, past poisonings for so many years that, I think I mentioned that my ex during our honeymoon had said that he married me for my father's money. And so, and then it was determined, because I started to get sick to the point where they thought I might have MS. And in fact, I took a break from law school for a while, just in order to heal from some of those things. And I realized it was poison. And so here now in Florida, I went to a lab, and for the first time, my LDL was high and my non-HDL was high. And I thought that's very weird, because they'd never been high before. And so I wondered if in fact these were like bogus numbers, and that they wanted to blame any heart issues I might have that were caused by the poisoning. But they might want to just say, oh no, she had high cholesterol, right? And so, and most people would think, oh, yeah, well, that makes sense, right? But remember, law enforcement, and I've had several conversations with law enforcement, they cautioned me and they told me that many times it's actually poisoning that is behind the heart attacks, and that people just don't realize it. And so when someone just has a heart attack out of the blue, you think, oh gosh, stress and maybe he did have some underlying cardiac issues that he was just unaware of. But in fact, that could be the case. And yet it could also be true that in fact, he had been exposed to some pretty severe toxins. And so when I actually went to 3 cardiologists in 3 different states. I went to when I was living in Arizona, and then when I was living in Oregon and in Florida. And so they barely wrote of the abnormal stress test in Arizona. And so the cardiologist there said, oh, you know what, it's a mistake, because there was something wrong on that test. And so they said, oh, it's just a mistake. And I said, well, you know what, I'd like to take it again, just to confirm that in fact it's just a mistake and not a problem that one would think, if it's abnormal, let's investigate. Don't just blow it off and say, oh no, the results of the test are wrong, right? Well, I retook it, and there was still a problem, and yet they refused to show me any of the results. And I thought, wow, that's crazy. So kind of the sabotage and the monitoring and the stalking and the following, I mean, how far does it get? And what can we do to protect ourselves? And then remember the brain injury, which was, I was told that my sibling was behind that. And it was a Greyhound bus, a huge steel door that was closed on my face, and then threw me against the side of the bus, where I then hit this side of my head and my body, and I collapsed. Anyway, I was ambulanced to the ER, and there they wrote that I had a very serious brain injury. And yet when I got copies of those records, they basically said it was like no big deal. And then when I went to Oregon, and I was told to see a cardiologist there as well. And then they said, the one doctor said, oh, brain injuries, I see them all the time. All the kids are getting them when they're playing soccer and football and stuff. And he said, they're all fine within 6 weeks. I don't even pay any attention to that. And I thought, oh, wow. Well, there are very serious injuries as well. And actually he did say, he said, so you have a brain injury. Is there any litigation? And I said, well, I'm seriously considering it. And yes, I have spoken to an attorney. And so he said, I don't get involved in that, and you'll just be fine. So don't worry about it. And I thought, okay. And I thought that was kind of a flashback to the pesticide, that had been sprayed there, because I went to so many doctors about that. And my attorneys told me that my ex had admitted paying landscapers to actually spray me with the hoses that had pesticide that they were spraying on the trees and bushes. And so anyway, when I had gone to doctors about that, they told me that there was really nothing they could do because I was poisoned from head to toe. And so they said, you know what, why don't you just wait for cancer and then we'll treat you with um, chemo and radiation. And I thought, oh my God, that's what you think. And so I went the holistic route and I made a remarkable recovery. And so I'm so grateful for that. But getting back to the radiologists that read the various scans. And so, I don't believe that people are inherently malicious, and certainly not those that have chosen careers in the medical fields. I do believe that many of them are highly altruistic and compassionate and bright and really want to help humanity. And so, but many of them, in terms of the ones that I had to deal with, and I'm not sure if it had to do with the ex and the sibling and the son, which of course it did, but they didn't mention even serious issues or in the scans, and they wouldn't even mention any ailing organs or because if they did, so technically they're not lying if they don't mention it, right? They're just guilty by omission. Yeah. So if you, for instance, after I had chest pain and I even had neck pain and back pain and arm pain, and I went to an ER and I said I thought I had a cardiac issue. And so the young doctor kind of blew me off. He didn't run any EKG, he didn't run any labs, he didn't even run a urinalysis because from the poison, sometimes the urine can be greenish tint. And so he didn't run any labs, nothing. And so when I eventually went to a primary care doctor, he was horrified that I went in there with chest pain, and they didn't do any labs. They didn't do an EKG, and in fact, they sent me home with a ridiculous wrist splint for only one wrist. When I said, I have clavicular pain and I have chest pain and I'm having difficulty breathing and I'm having pain radiate down my arms to my hands. In fact, so yeah, and they actually told me, they said, well, why are you in the emergency room? Because we only deal with life-threatening issues. And so why don't you just make an appointment with the orthopedic surgeon for your wrist? And so, and then they kind of deliberately ignored me, and I had to sit in that room for an hour until I realized they weren't coming back. And so I had to get up and find them, and I said, hey, what's going on? And they said, oh, just go. And I was like, well, okay, I wish you would have told me that an hour ago. But anyway, and the whole cardiac thing was the reason why we go to an emergency room, right? Is because we can't wait until we make an appointment to see someone. But let's see. Oh, and another radiologist. Oh, and well, that radiologist that that actually, well, I did have an ultrasound, and so they, a few years ago, they had found a low plaquing in my aorta, and so then this radiologist that couldn't find certain organs and things like that on my ultrasound, he said the aorta was nicely tapered, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. Is that guilty by omission as well? Anyway, and what from all the things that I've eaten, that have been quite toxic, I've been having some pain in my lower right quadrant, which is where the appendix is, and it's where a woman's right ovary is. And so it's interesting because when I had an ultrasound, that was the reason for the ultrasound. And yet when the radiologist read it, he never even mentioned the right ovary or anything in that right lower quadrant, which I thought was very interesting. And so he was kind of guilty by omission, right? He wasn't lying. So if in fact he saw an issue there, and so he didn't say that it wasn't there or anything like that, he just didn't even bring up that organ, that there's an organ there, right? And so And the same is true for kidney stones. When I was in Arizona, I had a kidney stone in each kidney, and I realized that um, that kidneys, that Arizona, it's so dry there that it's as if the air just wants to absorb all the moisture in our body. And so if we aren't hydrating enough, we might have a tendency to get a kidney stone. And so I had two kidney stones, one in each kidney, and the left one, they did lithotripsy, and they like shocked it so it shattered, and then I didn't have it anymore. And as for the right kidney, I still had it in there. And so it was interesting because this radiologist, he was really, really very clever. So he writes that there's no stone in the left kidney. Well, yeah, I know that because I had surgery for that. And then he never wrote anything about the right kidney. So he didn't lie by saying there's no kidney stone in either kidney. Or as he wrote, there's no kidney stone in the left kidney. He didn't write there's no kidney stone in the right kidney. He just didn't write anything about the right kidney, right? So again, he's not lying. He's just not telling the truth, or he's not disclosing everything. He's guilty by omission. You see? And so that's an interesting way of kind of slithering in and out of situations. And so what I found to be the most dangerous of all of this was that it wasn't just one physician. I mean, we're talking about virtually every physician I saw in actually 4 different states, because I first lived in Arizona, and then I moved to Oregon, and then I moved to California, and now I'm in Florida. And I returned to Florida because I had lived here for 10 years before, from 2004 on, after I left Chicago. But it was really, it was because every doctor seemed to kind of hide things from me. And and these are serious issues, because at some point, if they are left unattended, they can be very serious, if not fatal. And so, when we know that we have a problem with our health, then we can do something in terms of managing it and in terms of healing it. But if we get a blanketed, oh, everything's fine, you'll be fine, no problem, well, then, you have this illusion that you're more of a hypochondriac because you have a pain. And they say, oh, there's nothing wrong there. So, and then, and of course, the power of thought is important. So you want to be positive, and you don't want to see illness. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the criminal aspect of being guilty by omission and not providing the information that we are entitled to, because then you have your adversaries knowing more about your health than you know about your health, right? And if in fact it's those adversaries that are actually damaging your health, that are sacrificing you. And so, and now I want to go and have an MRI. I was told to get an MRI or an ultrasound or a CAT scan and blood work. And I thought, why would I want to get any of that done? Because the results could be totally bogus, right? And so then I'm thinking, I won't know what's really going on in my body, but yet my adversary, who is trying to manipulate such things so that I do become ill, then they would have that information. And I thought, it's so disempowering when people are such criminals that they would withhold medical information that you have a right to, that they don't have a right to, right? And so certainly my family doesn't have a right to my medical history and my medical conditions, just because they might be responsible for sabotaging it and paying people to withhold that information from me. But in any event, we have to remember that that some people just don't care, right? And so I remembered that, there are so many instances where we can be sacrificed at the hands of the medical profession. And believe me, I love the medical profession. Virtually every relative I have um, is a physician, and I studied medicine for many years, and I loved it. And I taught nurses, and I taught med students, and so I love doing research. So I'm fully behind um, um, the scientific and the compassionate aspect to it. I've known many doctors who are in it for for the best interest of all, which is to heal humanity and to show compassion and to use their intelligence in a way where they can diagnose and they can treat in ways that maybe other physicians wouldn't necessarily um, ascribe to. And so here, we have these brilliant men and women who are in the medical profession, and yet for some reason we can't even get them to tell us the truth by reading our MRI scans or our ultrasounds or our x-rays. I know if I've needed an x-ray, all of a sudden the tech will come out and he'll say, oh, you know what, we didn't really get that great of a picture. Let's do it again. And then I go back in there and they just keep zapping me with radiation. And I'm thinking, this is so criminal. And remember, my mom was actually starved to death in an Alzheimer's facility. And my father was, I believe, he was poisoned and then hospitalized. And it was only when I found out where he was that, in fact, within an hour or so of that he died. And so in the hospital, while I was right there, and while the sibling was right there as well. So the question is, who can we trust? And we'd like to trust everyone, right? But unfortunately, that's not the case. And so we are reminded that, I was reminded that just like when I was working on the estate litigation, and I was told there wasn't one attorney in the entire state of Florida who was allowed to represent me. And I thought, well, I'm going to lose, right? And so that's basically why I kind of gave up, because I couldn't do it without an attorney. And in fact, if the deck was stacked so far in someone else's favor, then, I've lost before I've even begun. And so sometimes when we feel that, in fact, physicians are withholding information from us and we won't get the right results on our blood work or on a scan, then why go through it, right? And so how can we? I mean, if we want to, if we want to see what exactly is going on, and if we want an accurate diagnosis such that we can then have a plan of treatment. However, if in fact that's not possible, then we have to trust. We have to trust ourselves. We have to trust the universe. We have to trust God. We have to trust the heavenly beings. We have to trust our spirit guides. We have to trust our guardian angels, because there is so much malignancy, if you will, out in the collective that people are they're just insane. Many people are. And so we have to shield ourselves from this type of darkness and this type of negativity. And then we ask, why do they want to hurt us? What have we done to them? Do they want something we have, whether it's our writing or whether it's our home or whether it's our significant other or whether it's what is it that they want? And do they just want money? And are they getting paid? And how much in order to sacrifice us? Because what is the cost? What is enough money for you to sell your soul? How much would it cost to buy your soul, for darkness to buy your soul. And so, when I saw so many people just kind of fading out of my life, I thought, if they aren't aligned with me energetically, and if we don't have the same goals for others, and if we don't have um, the same heart, really, if we don't for another one, then we might as well just release them, because we're not doing them any favors, and they certainly aren't doing us any favors, because they can't see who we are. And the best thing we can do is just shine our light as bright, um, and let it twinkle, and let it glisten, and let it sparkle, and yeah. And so we know who we are. And so whether, the other people are taking bribes, or they're blackmailed, or they're seduced, or they have promises of fame and fortune, or some other bait, and they were the flying monkeys everywhere. That's what I noticed. It seems like everywhere I go, there's flying monkeys. It's people who really don't want my best interest, but in fact, kind of put on a mask and act like they're my friends. But in fact, they'd like to sabotage me because, well, from what I've heard, my sibling is very generous with payouts if someone's willing to hurt me. And so that is just, and in the end, there's karma. And in the end, we reap what we sow. So worry not. And I'll tell you, here in Florida, I was staying with a person that I had met who was, I thought, very kind. And before bed, he would go around the house and lock all the doors. And I would be in my room, and so I would hear him. And so one night, he locked the doors as usual and turned on the outside lights before going to bed. And a few minutes later, I heard him walking around. And so I got out of my bed. And so I had this weird feeling. And so I was on the other end of the house. And so I got up and I looked at the doors. And in fact, they were unlocked. The outside door was unlocked and the lights were turned off. And I thought, that's really weird. So I went by his bedroom and I whispered his name a few times, but there was no answer. And I was still, something just wasn't right. And so I felt a little creeped out. And so I turned on the hall light and I saw that he was wide awake. And so I asked him if he realized that the doors were unlocked. And I asked him if he had done it. And he didn't answer me. And moments before, and then, no, and then he said, I said, did you unlock the doors? And so he didn't say anything. And then he actually said that they were coming to kidnap me. And I thought, what? And I realized that not only had he been communicating with a sibling, but in fact that they were meeting and quite possibly having an intimate relationship. But you know what? That's not my business. I don't care. I don't know. I don't care. I've just heard that that's her MO, because anybody that I spend time with is kind of targeted. But in order for her to have a closer relationship with them than I have, which is just fine with me. And so anyway, that's what I have to tell you, I guess. And the same thing happened in Scottsdale, which I talked about, I think it was in 26, because I was staying with a friend in Scottsdale, and the son called, and he wanted to move in with his dad, and in the house where I was also living. And so he would, after I'd go to bed, he would walk around the house and unlock the large patio doors to the pool and to the patio. And I thought, oh my gosh. So I would get up and I'd lock them. And then he'd get up and he'd unlock them. And I thought, oh my gosh, he's really playing dirty. So people, yeah. not everybody is looking out for our best interest, and people have people double deal, you know, and people wear masks. And so we need to think. We need to wake up. We need to really assess people and see, are they really, are they really trustworthy? And do they really care about us? And do they really have integrity? And are they our friends truly? Or lovers? Or, do they have our best interests? And so I'll just leave you on that note to contemplate who those people are in your life. And just be grateful that you don't have my family, right? And so anyway, the truth is that we are each given tools by which we can overcome whatever challenges and obstacles, we face. And so that's the beauty of it, is that there's nothing that we cannot overcome when we're smart and when we stay on the right path, right? And when we exercise discernment and good judgment. But if we're going to just, ignore it when we know someone's not good for us, and we just really try to exercise our will and try to go against their own free will, right? And we really hang on, cling to them, or we are so desperate for a relationship with them, well, then, that's not, we're not in the flow. And subconsciously we know that they are not for us, and we are not for them. And so just love yourself, and whatever it takes to be the very best person that you can be, that's what it's all about. And so don't worry about anybody else. Oh, you hear? Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess that's confirmation that I guess people want me to stop talking now. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, love yourself now and always. And remember that you are divine. And so come with me to number 28, okay, where we'll have page 11 of my forgiveness list with some other juicy topics. Okay. Well, anyway, I'm so proud of you. And I want you to know how much I love you. And I can't wait to see you again. So thank you for being here. Bye. Bye.